Hello, good afternoon and welcome to this Intralogistics Connected webinar sponsored by Six River Systems. I'm Katie Searles, reporter at Acabo Media, which organises Intralogistics, the UK's premier intralogistics and materials handling exhibition, and your host for today's session, which is titled Automation Partners Strengthen Logistics Operations Together. It's a great time to be in technology and logistics just now, as companies apply innovations to optimise the movement and storage of physical goods. It has never been in more demand than it is today. Fortunately, Simon Jones, Senior Solutions Executive for the UK and Ireland at Six River Systems, and Steve Lewis, Vice President for Solutions and Strategy at XPO Logistics, have joined us today to explain how you can achieve high levels of productivity whilst retaining your best people and maintaining complete flexibility in a fast-changing environment. Before we begin, I'd just like to encourage viewers to ask questions throughout the presentation via the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Please remember to submit your name, job title and company when you do so. I'll pose as many questions as possible to Simon and Steve in the time available following the end of our conversation. Also, a recording of this webinar will be made available to view on demand from tomorrow morning via intralogistics.co.uk, logisticsmanager.com and roboticsandinnovation.co.uk. And with that, it's time to hear from Simon and Steve. I caught up with them earlier to discuss the value of strong partnerships in automating logistics. Welcome, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us today. Let's start by hearing a little more about you and your companies. Simon, would you like to start?
Thank you, Katie, and thank you very much for inviting us. My name is Simon Jones, and I look after sales for the UK and Republic of Ireland for Six River Systems. Six River Systems, for those of you who haven't heard of us, we produce robotic solutions for the warehouse, robotic picking solutions, and we've been going since 2015. We were originally started by two senior executives from Kiva Robotics, who then became Amazon Robotics, if you're familiar with that company. And we've been growing at a tremendous rate. We've now got over 70 sites, both in North America and in Europe. And in fact, we became part of the Shopify family at the end of 2019. So we've been able to grow even faster and increase the capabilities and functionality of the system since then.
And Katie, Steve Lewis here from XPO Supply Chain. My main focus areas are the development and execution of key strategic initiatives. XPO is basically a top 10 global logistics provider. We have over 1,600 locations across 30 countries with 100,000 folks, really all working together to help our clients move their goods through their supply chains most efficiently as possible.
And how did your two companies begin working together?
Well, I think Steve will probably be able to answer this more fully than I will, but I think initially it was down to some relationships our founders had with some of the senior executives at XPO, and we certainly were asking, I think, XPO for some feedback on some of our early ideas so that we could make sure that we provided a revolutionary solution, but that something that was really relevant for the marketplace. We didn't just want to invent a technology for the sake of it. We wanted something that was actually going to solve problems that our potential customers were facing. But Steve, you might want to elaborate on that in terms of the actual first site.
No, you're right, Simon. We believe, Katie, at XPO that we're always on the cutting edge of technology. We have our innovation labs. We're always exploring what's coming new and what we can bring to help solve the new challenges of the day. The one that comes to mind as far as our first Chucks integration was really one specific location where we're trying to solve for peak. And we had a client that basically had anywhere from a 5 to 6 times peak, needed to ramp up people then, of course, to be able to solve this. So you have your Q4 challenge, you have a new workforce, contingent workforce that doesn't know about the operation. They've never been inside the site before. And what ends up happening is a huge investment in training there. And then there's also the higher probability of errors just because they're not used to it, right? And then you have to ramp up, and then quickly all those folks that you trained up, you need to ramp back down. So we're looking for a solution that could help us with that, and we definitely feel like we found that with Chuck.
If I may just add to that, Steve, I think the reason that your staff are able to pick it up really quickly is because fundamentally our solution is a system-directed approach. So we not only optimize the walking and shorten the walks, but we direct the operator every step of the way. We're guiding them through the process. So we're able to translate that most efficient strategy into what actually executed in the most efficient way on the floor, because we are guiding them through the whole process step by step.
No, it's true, right, Simon? It is kind of like a little bit of play on Gall's law, where you have a simple system that you've then just made even more efficient.
And what challenges were you looking to solve?
Yeah, so the challenges we were looking to solve really was about that. How quickly could we get a contingent workforce or an employee, a warehouse person, to be able to learn the warehouse very quickly, go out and be productive essentially on day one, and then reduce the error rates. And then after we went through our Q4 peak, how would we not be stuck with so much infrastructure? Right, so we needed to go live quickly, needed to be able to ramp up, then ramp back down, and then go from there.
I think some of the other benefits that you found, Steve, are the reduced turnover of staff as well. So that the fact that the solution not only makes the operators more productive, but also it's a less strenuous effort, and they end up walking a lot shorter distances during the day. And the demand, they're not pushing a heavy cars around. So I think you've also found quite a big improvement in retention of staff and morale of the staff as well.
So we know that this happens, that people come into our sites that have Six River and Chuck, and they're excited to work with the collaborative robot. And so one, it's fun to work with. Two, it's easier to work with. And like I was saying earlier, Katie, imagine going into a huge say in the States, you're in a 500,000 square foot facility, and you have to learn not only your new boss, the new how the business operates, but where do I go? And a lot of those things kind of helped us out. And so we found that people wanted to come back and work in that same environment, especially when you're temporary.
And how have you scaled your business together to develop new opportunities?
Steve, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we looked at was first we had the peak solution, right? And then very, I would say, next steps, we wanted to looking at what are the existing sites that we could go in that we knew that we could launch these very quickly. That's one of the things that this specific automation solution has over many others, is how quickly you can deliver a solution to market, right? Literally within weeks you can go live, and you don't need to change too much around the building. You essentially can just drop the trucks in. So we looked into our portfolio of sites and said, hey, where do we have long walks, and where can we remove those and make those more efficient? And that was the first phase. And then secondarily, as we had our learnings and we would challenge back to Simon and his team back and forth, how do we make it faster, better, and overall greater value for the clients, we began to look and see that was kind of the hook on the front end for new opportunities.
I think to add to that, what's really exciting about this relationship, Steve, and I hope you'll agree with me, is that now we've done several projects together, both in North America and in Europe. XPO have learned or been able to now, or feel they can now trust our design team to a great extent. So you can provide us with the data, and we'll tell you whether it's the right fit or not the right fit. And this isn't the right technology for every warehouse, and no technology is, and every warehouse is different. But everything we do is very data driven. So your team can provide us with the data from that particular site, and within a few days we can turn around a design for you, a design concept, to let you know, what the return on investment will be, what the improvement in the pick rate will be, how much it will cost. So you can get a really quick feel for whether this is something that you want to move quickly or whether it's not appropriate. And as Steve mentioned, we can turn this around. Once the agreement is in place, the really nice thing about this technology is that we can deliver it very quickly and we can set it up very quickly, literally in weeks. And once the robots are in place, it's 2 to 3 weeks before you're picking at full capacity. And as Steve mentioned earlier, to add capacity is just a simple matter of adding more robots as and when required. And you can do that even on a rental just for the peak period, or indeed as a capex or rental for the long term.
And what other ways do you think the technology has changed operations in logistic facilities?
Shall I take that one? So I think a number of ways. There's with the way that the market is changing, as everybody knows, the last 12 months or so has been a bigger change than any of us could possibly have expected. And so that affects both e-commerce and retail. From an e-commerce point of view, it's meant the demands on the warehouse have been to move product through much more quickly. What was okay a year ago in terms of your cut-off time for your e-commerce website is now not acceptable. We're finding a lot of customers are asking us to make those cut-off times much later in the day, sort of 9, 10, 12 o'clock at night in some cases. And in order to be able to then get those products out for delivery the next day, you've got to get those orders through the warehouse very quickly. And so we're designing systems to help customers do that. Conversely, for retail, the challenges are different because retailers have had an incredibly tough time. I'm talking about physical retail, incredibly tough time over the last 12 months. And even before that started, they were trying to reinvent themselves. There was already a threat from e-commerce in particular. And we saw a lot of reinvention in the retail space where companies were trying to make the shop more of an experience. Now that means taking up less space on the floor for stock. And so we're seeing more frequent replenishment deliveries to store of smaller quantities, and that's something else we've been helping, particularly in the UK with XPO and one of their largest customers in the UK. Steve, you probably want to add to that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, Simon, I agree with you, and I think that when I think about answering that question, Katie, it's kind of connected also with the ability to scale. So imagine in earlier scenarios what I was talking about and what Simon's talking about here is some of these e-commerce volumes are almost like cartoon-like projections, right? So you can't. In the past, years ago, not too long ago, we would have tried to build some steel to the ground and really build out for those 5-year volumes. Now, what we're providing with a solution like collaborative robots or other automation solutions we have at XPO Logistics, we provide options to be able to step into those. So you don't have to make the 5-year commitment. Even though your sales team is trying to get there, you can go ahead and have a little bit of automation that you're able to scale back in. A great example is you can start off with 20 chucks, and then if you need to scale back up, I mean, it's as simple as adding more to the field, if you will.
So Steve, how do you see consumer trends shaping customer demand in the future?
Yeah, Katie, I think we're going to continue to see really strong e-commerce trends. If you look at last year, I think what we saw was a 27% increase in e-commerce. That's over $4 trillion in e-commerce globally. We won't see, and everything I've been reading will not be that high of a year-over-year increase. It'll be somewhere in the teens, but the growth is still very material. We're talking over $600 billion worldwide in e-commerce. So those trends really align with what we're seeing for not only customer, but also end consumer expectations. As they want things faster, better, cheaper. And so with logistics providers like XPO, we're really trying to answer the mail for not only the customer, but also that end consumer. I know Simon, he deals with this with customers in his portfolio.
Yeah, we're seeing the same thing, Steve. And the big question is at the moment, how much of the incredible growth in e-commerce is going to be a residual amount, and how much will drop back into the retail chain? I don't think anybody really knows that answer at the moment, which sort of plays to what you were saying earlier about flexibility and how important flexibility is. And some of our the companies we're talking to are in the omni-channel environment who are selling product through e-commerce and through the store, are really valuing the opportunity to be able to flex between the two, so they can load balance effectively between the two requirements within their business. And that's something we've been able to help them with, both by relocating the chucks, which can be moved from one facility to another very easily, but also actually picking from the same pick face. So where you have a situation where the system will automatically load balance between your retail replen orders and your e-commerce orders, as you go through the day, through the week, and through the month. And that's been a particularly important feature and capability of the system that a lot of customers have been valuing.
So tell us about Chuck and how it works with people. How do employees like using them?
Thanks. If I can take that one first, Katie, and then I'll pass over to Steve about how employees like working with them, because he can say that from first-hand experience. So basically, Chuck is the sexy robot that everybody sees when they go into a Six River Systems deployment. In actual fact, it's only 20% of the complete system, and awful lot of what we do is within the software, controlling the robot, interacting with the WMS system, and orchestrating the whole solution. But in principle, what we're trying to do is we're working with people to do what people do really well, and people are very good at identifying something, locating something, putting it from one place to another. But there's an awful lot of walking within a warehouse picking operation, and what we're trying to do is remove as much of that as possible, and we do that in a number of ways. I could go on for several hours on that particular subject, but I won't do that now. But if you think about, in simple terms, the long walk where people going, where the pickers go and get their totes, for example, and they walk to their first pick location, and at the end of the long walk where they pick their last item and then they've got to walk back to the pack out, we can eliminate all of that walking, as well as making the pick walks within the pick face itself much more concentrated. And to give you a good example, I don't know if you're into pumping iron, Katie, but one of our customers is a very well-known provider of proteins for use of people in the gym. And as we were installing 18 months ago, 2 days after they started picking with Chuck, one of the pickers who'd been wearing a Fitbit, we didn't know this, he'd been wearing a Fitbit for the previous 2 or 3 years. He very excitedly came up to our deployment engineer and told them that he'd actually halved the amount of walking he was doing every day since he started picking with Chuck, which was impressive in itself, and he was certainly pleased that he was going home fresh at the end of every day. But when we looked at the data with the customer, he was actually picking far more orders during that shorter pick route than he was when he was picking with a heavy manual cart. So he was certainly very, very pleased with the solution. But Steve, you might be able to give some other examples of how your staff enjoy working with Chuck.
I think, Simon, your story kind of hits it right on the head. You know, I think I have some stories across sites that we have both in the UK and the US where we've had at least double the productivity with Chuck. And so just as we're all humans, we want to win, we want to do better, we want to be more efficient. And so that all helps us, right? So we find that many of our associates, they like the technology, it's easy to use. And whatever automation solutions we're putting in there, it's attractive to the type of folks that we're attracting to the jobs within XPO and our sites. And yeah, I think that one, it's easy to use. Two, it makes you more efficient. And we see people still wanting to keep on coming back. They like to work with the technology.
We are excited to start 2021. What do you see as the biggest opportunities in automation? Steve?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about specifically the Six River Chuck and collaborative robots. What I see happening is bringing more automation solutions together. So we have a very robust automation toolkit and decision tree, and what we're finding now is bringing some of those closer and within the same solution, the same roof. So, for example, having a Chuck with a specialized packaging solution to reduce the amount of cardboard, reduce whether it's like air inside of like the back of a truck, right? So that way you get more density, things that could be sustainable. And so I think what we're going to find here this year and in the future years is folks like Six River continuing to partner with other solutions and then integrating into provide the best solution for clients.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Steve. We've seen last year our first integration into the kind of pack size machine that you're talking about that will give that effective packaging size and minimum packaging size. We actually pick directly into those items as well, so it reduces or eliminates the need for totes. And also integrating at the output end, if you like, integrating to auto baggers and that kind of technology. And other automated packing machinery, and also working with other types of automation. So with secondary sortation, we've got some very sophisticated software that allows us to look at the order pool and work out the best strategy to pick each of the orders within the order pool, whether that be singles batching, batch pick for secondary sortation, or indeed discrete packaging, and looking at all of those permutations on the fly to work out the most efficient way to pick the order pool as it stands right now at the moment, which is of course very important for e-commerce in particular.
Well, thanks so much, Simon and Steve, for joining us today. We're looking forward to the Q&A coming up.
Thank you.
And I am pleased to say that I do have a few questions for you both. We'll start with Simon. What's the best part of developing robots that help people do their jobs?
Great question. I think there's actually two parts to that. For me personally, to that answer, that question. One is the very sort of simple level of helping people do the job more efficiently. Actual pickers on the floor. I love working in warehouses and seeing how warehouses work and how people work within them, and to help people be more efficient, to make the job easier for them, and in fact help more people to be able to do that job comfortably. It gives me a bit of a kick, and actually I'm sure Steve will also comment on this. The first time you see somebody pick with Chuck for the first time, they can't help but smile. It's really, it's quite a warm feeling. They get it straight away. Whether that's the CEO of a big retailer or somebody who's just starting a new picking job that day. On a more sort of on a greater level, I suppose I enjoy working in warehouses. I enjoy helping to see processes be made more efficient, understanding the challenges of the customer. And as we said before, every warehouse is different and has different challenges. Every customer has different challenges, and helping to find solutions, creative solutions, using the technology to solve that. Steve?
No, I agree with you, and I think that you hit it on the head there. I would say I probably don't have anything more to add. I think I just agree.
I've got a question for you, Steve, then. With more people buying online more than ever, how does your team manage spikes in demand, especially around peaks such as the holidays?
I think one of the things about peak is you first focus on labor, and I know that what we experienced in the last few years is way more job openings in the regional markets, if you will, than there are applicants. So first and foremost, you got to position yourself as an employer of choice. And that starts with having the right culture. You got to have a great, safe place to work, right? Treat your team members with dignity and respect, and that's just table stakes to be able to get in and to be able to solve these peaks, because you do need people. The next thing we do is we take our folks, our team, our associates, and combine that with our SMART platform. So it's our proprietary in-house platform that helps us with labor planning, inbound and outbound production flows, production management, and then it ties in with our automation suite also. So something like Six Rivers, which allows us to scale in and scale up with those peaks, right? So then we're adding folks in because we're attracting them because we feel like we're a great place to work. We have the technology layer there with our SMART platform, so we know exactly where to deploy the people, the collaborative robots to be able to get the optimized solution.
Thank you very much. And we've got a question from Howard Jagger. He would like to know if you think auto bagging is a good step in automation, even with the concerns over plastic and recycling. Simon, do you want to start off on that one?
Yes, I have to confess I'm not an expert on packaging or indeed packaging materials. But there are various types of automated packaging systems that we've integrated to. Some are plastic and some are paper and cardboard and cases. It really depends on what the customer, is looking to do, what the product is, because some products wouldn't be suitable for necessarily paper packaging, for example. But it was more about the fact that we are being asked a lot more to integrate with the next phase of after the picking process. Steve, have you probably?
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think there's so many advancements in the type of packaging material, the different types of dunnage, whether it is plastic. We're seeing recycled plastics that are being used, right? And so there is a greater focus on sustainability. I think really the UK and Europe led that, and as far as when we think about this, right? And then now it used to be something that I think in the US that was more almost a niche type of thought process and supply chains. And now that ship has sailed, and it's something that everybody is getting involved in. And again, it's becoming like a core capability that you need to have, not only if you are a major corporation or if you're a 3PL like XPO Logistics, is to be able to provide those sustainable solutions. Many of us, our companies have really aggressive growth plans to do the right thing with the climate and sustainability and reducing our carbon footprint. So I think there are a number of solutions out there.
Actually, just to finish up on that, I think one of the most important things is right size packaging, because having the right size package means that not only are you using the minimum amount of packaging materials, but you're also shipping the minimum amount of volume, and so clearly having an impact on the amount of fuel being used as well. And that's something that we have, as I mentioned earlier, that we've done some integration work with, and that's been very successful.
Thank you.
It's so true, Simon. I'm going to jump on that one more time, only because it's something I'm passionate about. And one of our sites here, a global provider of affordable furniture, right? So a lot of flat pack type furniture. We put one of these. Basically right sizing of cardboard packaging systems in, and one of the first things that was amazing was how much more dense we could get those trailers. So now you're actually thinking about it from moving material. You're getting less, you're using less cardboard, right? You're also using less dunnage inside there. You're getting those trailers packed tighter, so now less carbon footprint as you go ahead and you make that first mile out of the DCs. So yeah, I think it's a very exciting time.
And we have another question for you, Steve. It comes from Tina Shelley. She asked, do you see the same opportunities in continental Europe, and what do you think are the biggest challenges there?
So I don't know if I would say I'm an expert in continental Europe, but I will say that one of the challenges is space. So it's not as challenging for us in the U.S. to be able to say, well, hey, we're just gonna put a 1 million square foot facility right over here. I know when I went and traveled into the UK, there's just not, where there's density or where there's people, there's not a lot of space, right? Many of the I go to a pub and the pub is older than our country in the US. So there's just not, it's already dense in many areas. So you have to have layers, right? You need to have, we don't have very many locations that are multi-layered mezzanines and things like that. I know that automation solutions such as Chuck provide those type of opportunities that you can, and you don't have to have a big infrastructure retrofit into some of these sites. So I do think that these solutions absolutely can and do work in Europe, and really it's just more about, I think it's optimizing the space utilization, which of course we are still always focused on that space optimization, but we can still expand and sprawl out, if you will. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. It is true to say that things are different in Europe. We like to say it quite a lot. But the fact is, you're absolutely right. The principal difference is around space, and we just don't have the very, very large warehouses that you will see in the States, which means that at a superficial level, we don't do quite as much of the long walk, as we term it, which is that sort of picking up your totes or your cartons and pushing your trolley to your first pick, and then at the end of the last pick, coming back to the packer area. However, that doesn't mean to say that the technology doesn't work in Europe. It works incredibly well, because actually that long walk is a relatively small part of the labor saving, the productivity improvement. Where we see the really big gains is in the way that we can optimize the orders onto a chuck, and so we're shortening that pick walk within the pick area, and we actually spend a huge amount of effort and processing time in order to look at the order pool to see how we can do that. We use various techniques for that, which if anybody offline would like to go through, I'd be very happy to talk about those. I think the other thing, particularly about our technology, I'm not so qualified to talk about other technologies, but with our technology, we can work with a relatively narrow aisle. We can go down to at least 1.2 meters and possibly in some cases slightly less. So that means that we can get more capacity within the warehouse than you would typically get with a collaborative robot. And so, we found that's been very helpful in other situations. And the third point, again, going to mezzanine floors, particularly in for products like e-commerce apparel and that kind of thing, we often come across mezzanine floors in that situation, and there's various strategies that you can use to maximize the productivity within those areas. And I sort of alluded to them earlier. The sort of strategy where quite often you'll have multiple pick locations for the same SKU, and you'll have them across the floor. So the amount of products, the orders that need to be consolidated across floor is actually, when you do the analysis, quite often quite a low number. And so you can have a secondary sortation solution for those orders that need to be combined, but then you can also take your discrete orders and take them straight to pack out. So absolutely, mezzanine floors we see a lot more often, and there's various ways in which you can get the benefit from this kind of technology within a mezzanine floor.
And this is another question for you, Simon. Do you see outright ownership or rentals being the preferred model for logistic organisations looking to deploy robots in warehouses, or is it a bit of a mixed approach?
I guess the short answer is we don't care. If you want to, we offer both models. We offer a rental model, we offer a capital model. It really depends on what suits the customer best. And very often with third-party logistics companies, where they'll have a fixed-term contract with their customer, it's not appropriate to have might not be appropriate to have a capital investment model, because it's better to have a rental model that is approximately the same term as their contract with their customer. But it does vary from customer to customer, and we tend to give prices for both options. And of course, the seasonal rentals are just that; those are rentals. So we can always accommodate increases in peak periods very easily that way. Steve, I don't know how you prefer to. I'm not sure you want to divulge it, do you?
I would say that overwhelmingly we are making the actual procurement action there. We're not renting or leasing. Now, you can kind of shave the peak like we talked about earlier. It's a great product to be able to partner with associates to be able to hit those high peaks, but overwhelmingly what we're doing is making those investments. And as Simon said, we do have at XPO specifically, we have a lot of long-term contracts and engagements. And that makes these investments in automation very attractive, right? You have a longer horizon for that ROI, and it's much easier to achieve. And the benefits and the out years are even greater. So when we find that we can partner with an automation solution provider, such as Six River, and get the right solution for a client, and then have a long-term engagement, everybody wins.
And of course, you can also redeploy them if you own them. You can redeploy them to other sites, I guess.
You're absolutely right. So especially like we were talking about earlier, Katie, your first question about how do you solve some of those peaks, you really could in some of these facilities redeploy not only people but also trucks. That solution, it really is mobile that way, and it works very well, especially in some of our larger multi-client sites. In the U.S., we have basically a nationwide network called XPO Direct, and we have trucks in these sites, and so we can move those around to be able to support multiple clients under one same roof. So it's very beneficial.
Thank you very much. And what insight does technology such as Chuck provide regarding order progress or pick rates? Is that maybe one for you to answer, Simon?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. One of the benefits of this kind of technology is that we're capturing a huge number of data points all the time within the solution, and that ranges from how fast the trucks are moving, how many times they're stopping, how many times people are badging in, all that kind of stuff. So from that we can display dashboards, ranging from heat maps, so that the supervisors can look at the heat map of the warehouse and reslot if necessary, if that's felt to be desirable. We can also provide some information behind that to help with that, but also with employee performance and coaching, so that you can actually help an employee who may be not performing a particular task or part of the task as quickly as some of their other colleagues. You can help them and coach them as to find out why that is and how they can improve. So the dashboards are actually something, we talk about them when we're first designing a system, and you can see customers thinking, yeah, well, okay, that's great. But actually, if you go and talk to our customers, the value they place in those dashboards and the way that help them control and further improve their operation is incredible. Right, the simple end of sort of being able to say at any one time how many pickers you need on the floor right now in order to hit your SLAs at the end of the day, through to being able to model and simulate how changing settings and fine-tuning the system might impact the productivity. And that's something that our customer success teams spend a lot of time working with customers on, is with a system like this, you've got so many levers and things you can tweak and improve and change. What's the right combination? And as the business changes, as the customer's business changes, how can we further adapt the system and tweak the system to improve performance further? And our objective is to improve the performance year on year for every customer. Steve, do you utilize the dashboards a great deal?
Yeah, we do utilize the dashboards, and we also have it integrated with we have our own in-house WMS system. We call it WMX for XPO. We also have our integration layer that connects technologies such as Six River with our warehouse management system. And then I talked earlier, Katie, the smart labor platform. What that allows us to do is take all those data points and dynamically make optimization improvements right there in the middle of the shift, if you will, right before the next picks. So as Simon said, it really is about that data. When you get that level of granularity, you're always, it seems like you're always getting that little bit of extra toothpaste out of the toothpaste tube that everybody's trying to get.
I like that analogy.
And Chris Parker would like to know, can this solution adapt to support operations which handle multiple different product types and sizes? Simon, do you want to?
Yeah, certainly. It's one of the sort of the reasons we designed Chuck in the way that we did, and the whole sort of system flows from that. But Chuck is designed as standard to have up between 2 and 6 shelves. So that's that's something we look at when we're looking at the design for a customer. What's the most effective number of shelves for that particular customer? And it is also, the shelf space is I've got to work this out, just over 80 by 60, about 90 by 60. So there's a large amount of space there. And what we found is that, if I can sort of give an example, working with customers, is that if you've got products that some are shipping in their own container, for example, and might be larger than your typical tote, then they can go onto the shelf quite happily, as long as they don't go over the size of the chuck, alongside other orders that are picked within totes. So having that flexibility of shipping in own container, totes, and also putting cases on as well if necessary, means that you can ship a wide range of products using Chuck, or pick a wide range of products using Chuck, and deliver them to the pack out. But Steve, you're talking about the fact you've got multiple customers in the same warehouse, so I guess you have quite a cross section there.
Now you're right, Simon. What we're finding out is that the multiple configurations, especially with the two different sizes of chucks, allows us to be able to cross not only products but verticals. So we've launched this into our aerospace clients, automotive, healthcare, of course, kind of more the e-commerce, fashion, footwear. Really it's what you can think, there's also configurations for garment on hanger. So it's very adaptable. And that is actually what is very attractive to this solution and others. You need to have that adaptability, flexibility, modularity, if you will. All of those have to come together. And of course, it's got to be very affordable and deliver value to the end customer. And this definitely, Simon and I talk often about, there is no one size solution that fits everything, but if it fits, the benefits here, especially with this technology, is it is adaptable. So you can have this deployed in a multi-client site and have the ability to pick various size items and still be able to get those efficiencies that we expect. We definitely, that mark is, we want at least that 2x improvement in picking, and that's the minimum, and we're always trying to get a little bit more.
And we've also found, when you go and analyze a customer's site and you look at their product split, they might sometimes have a small number of products that actually won't fit on Chuck. If automotive is a really good example, you might have a lot of components that will fit into totes, some that will fit it in their own container on the shelf on Chuck because they're slightly large, but some that are just too long. When you do the analysis of the orders, typically that's a relatively small proportion of the order pool. So in those situations, what we recommend is that you have a dedicated oversized pick area for those items, and you pick those manually, and then the vast majority of product can then be picked much more efficiently using the Six River Systems solution.
Thank you very much. We probably have time for just one more question. It's about staff training. Do staff need trained to use Chuck? Simon or Steve, do you want to take this first?
Steve, why don't you answer that, because you're training people all the time, or your company?
Yeah, no, I think so. Everybody needs training on any of the automation solutions we deploy, and it's the right thing to do. I think the thing here with Chuck and some of our other solutions is the actual time from when you're first being trained to being proficient. And I talked earlier about one of the reasons what attracted us to this solution at the beginning was how quickly a picker could be efficient in a brand new facility with a brand new technology. So I think that there's always going to be training. There's always going to be recurring training. It's kind of a core value for us at XPO. But the one thing I will say is that the training cycles are dramatically shortened, and just the functionality, we saw some on the videos, that the technology with Chuck directing you to the pick, basically the pick face, giving you a picture of what you're supposed to pick, the light bar of what bin it's supposed to go into. All those things play into the efficiency, the accuracy, and then it just reinforces the training at that point. So I don't know, Simon.
Yeah,
your thoughts?
Not much to add, really. I think the rule of thumb we have is that a picker can be going solo within 15 minutes of initially trying with starting to use Chuck, and we tend to tell customers within 3 days they'll be picking to the same pick rates as their more experienced pickers. However, actually a lot of customers reckon it's significantly less than that, and we'll quote a day, and it's primarily because of the way the system is designed, and which is why I said earlier that the Chuck is the 20% that everybody sees, but it's basically the approach, and it's why we have the picker following the Chuck, because we're keeping their attention all the time. We're directing them every step of the way, not just to where the next pick is, but what their next task is continuously. So we're not giving them the tasks or decisions to have to make as to where to go next, or because we know what's most efficient. We've done that calculation, that very complex calculation. So we don't want to then for them to have to make their own minds up about what is the most efficient place to go or the next robot to go to. We help them through that path so that we can maintain that consistent performance.
Well, thank you very much. That brings us to the end of this webinar. I would like to thank Simon Jones, Senior Solutions Executive for the UK and Ireland at Six River Systems, and Steve Lewis, Vice President for Solutions and Strategy at XBO Logistics, for joining us this afternoon. I'd also like to thank Six River Systems for sponsoring today's webinar, which again will be available to view on demand from tomorrow morning via intralogistics.co.uk, logisticsmanager.com, and roboticsandinnovation.co.uk, in case you'd like to refer back to the presentation or share it with a colleague. Also, as you can see on your screen now, Intralogistics, the UK's premier intralogistics and material handling exhibition, will now take place at the Rico Arena in Coventry on the 1st and 2nd of July. Organisers Acabo Media confirmed the new dates following the UK government's announcement that exhibitions can take place from the 17th of May, where they are controlled indoor events of up to 1,000 visitors, or 50% of the venue's capacity, and from the 21st of June, where there are no restrictions on numbers or capacity. Visit intralogistics.co.uk now to secure your place and discover the latest offerings to be showcased from 135 of the leading intralogistics and materials handling equipment suppliers to the UK. That's it, we've come to the end. Thank you all for attending today's session. I'm Katie Searles. See you again soon. Goodbye.